Hey, best friends.
Welcome to another episode of the Bestie Advice, where we discuss all things relationships. Hey, besties. Hey, family. Hey, friends. It's your girls again, Karan Hayes, and my bestie, Dr. Irene Abrams. And this is another episode of the Bestie Advice. Hey, everybody. Hey, 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 hey. This season, we are going to be talking about just so many different things. As you all know, the Bestie Advice is all things relationships. And this season, we are really getting into the various relationships that's out there. We're going to be talking about as far as marriages, being single, starting again, talking to even some people, who may have gotten a divorce and they're just kind of trying to get themselves like back on track to get back out there again, if they even want to get back out there again. So on this episode, we have one of our favorite besties. Y'all know her. It's our good friend, Tjuana Williams.
Hey, y'all.
And on today, you all, we want to talk about doing it again. The second time around. Y'all know that song.
Oh, wow, you went old school. You went way back.
Way back.
But as far as doing it again, getting remarried, starting over, going into a new relationship, a new marriage after divorce. Sometimes when some people get divorced, they're like, nope, that's it, one and done, not doing it again. But then for many others, no, love is out there and they want to do it again. They find that right person and they decide, okay, yes, I want to get remarried. So Tjuana on here because she has decided to get remarried again. And y'all, we love our new friend Brian. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So Irene, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead and ask that first question to Tjuana.
Yes, thank you so much. And if you watched our mini series last summer, we did a mini series, and Tjuana, and along with Stephanie Jones, was our special guest host. So we love having you be on the show, Tjuana. But last year she was Tjuana Porter, and this year on this new season, she is Tjuana Williams. So I want you to tell us, Tjuana, just a little bit about yourself and your first marriage and kind of what led you to really just begin to sever that marriage and relationship and get a divorce and really open your heart to love again. But just give us a little background on your first marriage.
Yes.
Absolutely. So thank y'all so much for having me again. It's always a pleasure and so much fun to be here with y'all.
Yes.
So I was married at age 21 it lasted 25 years. So literally was just divorced in 2022. And we were separated since 2019. So about 3 years separated. So the marriage just it was and then it wasn't, right? I know people are like, how do you go 25 years? I used to ask the same question. How do people be married for that long and it just, don't work? For so many different reasons. So for my reason, it was pretty personal. I just long story short, I didn't like who I was. And I needed to make some changes for me. The ex and I are still cordial. We have 4 boys together. One of them passed away, but we still have 4 boys that we had together. And, life just happened. I know it's so cliche to say that, but everybody's story is different. My life happened for me, and I just did not like who I was, and I needed to make some changes. And so that is what ultimately led to the divorce. So
that's good.
Yes, absolutely. So then, Tawana, I know as far as after getting a divorce, especially with being with someone for such a long time, that there is like almost like a pruning, a cleansing process, a healing process. Just kind of, kind of walk us through as far as your actual process.
So absolutely. So I equate divorce to like a death, like a spiritual death, because
Yeah.
we got married um as a covenant, right? And so it was a spiritual death. So although we went through what we went through in the marriage, which wasn't bad. Like I know a lot of times people have these stories of, there was abuse, there was this, there was that. My previous marriage wasn't terribly bad. It was just
Yeah.
a whole point of, I didn't like who I was. I needed to make some changes. And so I went through this process of once the separation happened, because again, from 1990, even before that, because I had met him when I was in high school. So probably like
Mhm.
30, 35 years of my life, right? I was in that relationship. So I had to shut down. So I went through a period of like no TV, no no radio, no music, except for
Yeah.
in the car, just kind of shutting down. I spent a lot of time in my bedroom with the door closed, journaling and praying and reading, and then just and therapy.
Yeah.
Therapy. I went to therapy. I hit therapy hard. And I remember going to the therapist and he was like, "Oh, so how often do you think you need to come?" I was like, "Yeah, maybe once a month." After he heard my story, because I went deep, I just felt like being so vulnerable and just getting to the root of everything. Like, why did I feel this way all these years later? Why did I want to make this decision? Once
Mhm.
he heard everything and I laid it out, he was like, "Oh no, I need to see you at like twice a week, once a week, not once a month." So
Yeah.
we just did a deep dive. I was going to therapy like every week and sometimes twice a week, depending on what the topic was.
Mhm.
And so doing therapy, praying, reading, writing, and even coming up with the book that I was able to write in 2021 to complete in 2021, just going through that deep, deep process. I had like scriptures on my mirror. Like I can even see it in my mirror. My mirror had a bunch of sticky notes on there. Like I needed to be reminded of some
Yeah.
things constantly. So the affirmations, the
Mhm.
scriptures, the prayers. I just did like a deep dive. I had to really get to the root of like, why did I feel this way? Why did I need to make this decision for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's
So,
good. And
go ahead,
that's
Irene.
that's
Mhm.
amazing. And that's very brave because what I'm hearing you say is you did this for yourself.
Yeah.
The marriage didn't have any major red flag issues.
Mhm.
You just felt like you had changed and you needed something different. So I just want to commend you because that's very brave. A lot of women suffer silently and
Yeah.
they'll stay in a marriage for their children, for the way it looks. And
A church.
just to go a little bit deeper, I know that you're like a minister's wife,
Mhm.
so the church could possibly
Yeah.
look down on
Yes.
that. And
Yeah.
so I really commend you for choosing yourself
Yeah.
and making sure you were happy. And I hear you say everything that you did. And so for those women out there that may be teetering, like, should I divorce? Should I not?
Mhm.
Um, the divorce papers are already drawn. Like, what kind of advice would you give them? It seems like you did the hard work, and it's hard when you gotta look internal.
Yeah.
That's a hard work to do, and you
Yes.
did that work. What advice could you give our audience, like women or even men that might be in that place where you were in 2019?
Yeah.
I definitely wanna let it be known that it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Definitely, for everything you just mentioned, right? I was married to a minister, and of course, we were heavily in the church, heavily involved. So I went through different phases, right? It's like, what are the church people going to say? What are our close friends? How are they going to react?
Mhm.
What are my babies going to think?
Yeah.
The family members that are connected, right? It was so many different things that went through my mind. And then I thought about, maybe I should just stay, even though I was unhappy for my own reasons. I just did not like who I was. And so I did that deep work and I ultimately, I prayed like constantly, like over and over, because I'm like, God, I don't want to make a mistake. God, what if this? And I blame myself for so much.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I had to let go. That's one of the best things that I did. I had to let go. And when I say let go, I had to surrender it to God. Even I remember driving in a car and I was just really honest with God. And before being in the church, it's like you feel like certain things I can't talk to God about because of this or that. But I was like, you know what? I had like an epiphany in the car, like God already knows all of me. He knows my heart, he
Yes,
knows
he
my
does.
unspoken words. And so I was like, you know what, God, this is where I am. This is who I am. This is how I'm feeling. I need your help. And from that moment, I was dropped my baby off at school. And when I drove, I was literally driving, bawling on Roosevelt and Ashland. I remember this. And I just gave God my everything. Like I said, God, I'm giving you the parts of me that are hidden, like the lying parts of me, the untruthful parts of me, the happy part, every part I can think about that made up Tjuana that I thought.
Yeah.
I gave it to him and I said, okay, here she is, God, I need your help. And so from that moment, I felt like a sense of freedom and I just started moving forward in that thing. And so even now, it's not easy, even on, the other side, but I believe that I made the decision that needed to be made for me at that time. So I will tell other people, you will have a sense of freedom and peace when you need to make the decision that you need to make. People
Yeah.
can't tell you what to do. People can chime in and say what I would do, but we can go through the same exact thing. The way I see it, the way you react to it, the way you feel about it can be totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. So I would just say it's an individual thing. It's not a group thing. It's not a woman thing. It's not a man thing. It's you and it's God.
Yes. And I just want to ask you, or just kind of want to just kind of piggyback on something that you said in regards to going to therapy, seeking counseling. I know at the end of the day, as much therapy and counseling as we can get, it's still your decision at the end of the day. But how important is it to actually seek out wise counsel? To go to a therapist to kind of talk things out when you're going through this process.
It is so important. I
Yeah.
often say prayer and therapy,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And I was, so the way this thing worked out for me, because I had saw went through the insurance, they recommend some therapists. I started going to her. I think I went to like 3 sessions, and I knew, because you will know who your person is and who's not your person. And
Yeah.
I went to her 3 times, and after that third time I was like, this ain't it. And so somebody had referred, a good friend of mine had referred her therapist to me, but he was out of network.
Hmm.
Well, this all happened around, so I didn't go into a year after me being separated. So I started March 2020 was my first visit, the week before COVID just kind of started.
Right. Right.
And so when I went to see him in person, we were fine. When I got to him, what made me know that that was my person, he broke down his rate to me and I took a deep breath. I was like, okay, right. So I'm like, I
Mhm.
need to invest in myself. And so I said,
Right.
okay, I'll do it. And then
Yeah.
he said, you know what? He said, pray about it and come back to me and tell me what God told you is fair to pay me. And then when he ended my session, he said to me, he said, if you can pay this every other week, I'll cover the other 2 weeks.
Wow. That's a
And
blessing.
then he said, right, he said, do you mind if I end our session with prayer? And I was
Yeah.
like, thank you, God. Like, this is
Yeah.
the person. So his
Yeah.
title, actually, I didn't even find out till later, he's a Christian psychologist. So he actually, for that season in my life, when I tell you that was one of the best decisions that I made, one of the best. He helped me break down some things that I would have
Yeah.
never put together. So I will tell people, therapy and prayer, when you find a really good therapist and get to the root of who you are,
Yeah.
it makes a world of difference. You won't even see life the same anymore.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
won't. Yeah.
Good. That is, I really, really like that. And for all of you guys listening out there, that's like amazing advice to really, sometimes you gotta talk to someone. I know we like to talk to our best friends, our mom, our dad, but I really like what she said, just to piggyback off of what Kiran said, just getting a therapist. And of
Mhm.
course, our Lord and Savior,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
prayer. But I want to ask a question, if it's okay with you, Kiran. You might have
Yeah. Yeah.
another one before we
Go
get
ahead.
here, but I definitely want to ask you a question. When did you know you were ready to open your heart to love again?
Yeah.
Because
That's good.
sometimes, and let me just speak for me, and I'm getting better. I just don't know. I think like once I'm so hurt, and see, maybe the therapy helped you. It's like you guard yourself, like you
Right,
don't want to
right.
be hurt in that same way. And
Mhm.
so it's just, admirable that you were healed and, you just let a lot of that go and you were able to open up your heart to love again. But my question is, when did you know that you were ready? Because love came at you fast and hard and quick. So I need to
Yes,
know all the
yes, yes,
secrets.
yes.
I need you to help, tell us,
Yes,
give us
Oh
the
my
tea.
God.
yes,
When did you know that you
yes,
were ready to love again?
So the funny thing about it is I didn't know.
yeah.
Mm,
Right. So my story is, like I said, is different. I don't have those he abused me stories, right? Where I was,
Right, right.
so broken and so hurt. I was more hurt because I was making a decision to choose me. I beat myself
mm,
up, right? So that was my hurt. And I was just like, my thoughts were, I wasn't the one that said, I never want to get married again. I did want to get married again, but I wanted to do it under different circumstances. And then
Mm,
I beat myself up so much and I was like, you know what? I have to let go. I had to literally, when I tell you I had to repeat the Philippians 4, I think it's 7, maybe I'm misquoting it, but be
mhm.
anxious for nothing. Like I would literally walk and saying that scripture from beginning to end. Be anxious for
Yeah.
nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with
Make
thanksgiving,
your request known.
known to God, and the peace
Yes.
of God that passes all understanding with God your heart literally every day,
Yeah.
all day. And that was one of the scriptures that sustained me. So
Yeah.
I used to read a bunch of quotes, right? And you hear things like, oh, don't go looking, it'll find you. And I remember saying, when? I remember saying, who? And people would tell me, oh, you won't be single long. And I'm like, where he at? Like, where is he at? And one of my prayers along the way, because I knew I didn't want to be by myself, like again, being honest with God, like I don't want to be alone, right? But I just don't want to settle either. Right. So,
right,
Mhm.
right,
right. So I did call myself while I was separating, dating twice. It did not work out because it wasn't supposed to work out.
Right,
So I
right.
was at that point where I said, you know what? I'm pulling back. I'm pulling back. I'm taking a step back. I literally told most of my friends, I'm stepping back. You know what? I'm not dating. And I remember, I think maybe June or May of last year, 2022, I was on the bathroom floor, like my nose was to the ceramic tile. And I was like, God, I'm tired. I'm not for these streets. You know your daughter. I said, get your son together
Mhm.
because so he can come get his girl. And I said, if you do it, God, then it'll be exactly what I need.
Mhm.
And so fast forward, last year, did an event with my girl, and she called me and she was like, so. And every time she called and say so, I'm like, it's something coming after that. So.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so she started laughing and she said, well, somebody's interested in you. And I said, I just told y'all I'm stepping back. And she was
Mhm.
like, but I can vouch for him. He's a good guy. She gave all the props. And I said, okay. So she was like, sleep on it. Fine. So the next day, she and I were in a car together and his name popped up. And I was like, oh, is that him? And she was like, yeah. I was like, oh, give him my number. So literally that was July. And if I called him out the room right now, he would tell you the exact time and the day. Because he often said it was July of last year, like
Mhm.
July 18th. And ever since then, he came in being intentional. And what got me is that he said to me a week after that, he said, when I saw you, he was like, I heard God said, go get her. And I said to him, I said, okay, let me find out that God whispered my prayer in your ear. Because I literally 2 months before that said, God, get your son together. So
Yeah,
he can
yeah.
get his girl,
Mhm.
right? So when he said that, it was just like confirmation. And then he came in so intentional, wanting to do the work. Because this is both
Yeah.
of our second time around, right? So he was married for I think 13 years. And I wish y'all can bring him on the show to hear his story. Like if y'all add me into the show, you need to get him on here because he has
definitely.
the way he tells the story is like, yeah. So I didn't know that, if I was ready. In my mind, in my heart, I felt like I was, but I didn't know when.
Yeah.
Right. I felt like I was healed and I was free, but there was still some work to be done, right? I was open. I wasn't like, I'm not doing this again. I wanted to do it again. I just didn't
Yeah.
know when I wanted to do it again.
Right. That's
Right.
good.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And I do want to just add one thing in, which you're even talking about as far as just the whole timing thing. Just literally sitting back and allowing God to do the work. And it was like you just took your hands off of it. I'm done. When you said you was
Mhm.
on the floor, like I'm done. I'm really giving this all to you, God. You gonna have to get him together and send him right here. I'm not looking no more. I'm not going out there anymore. So just even with that, with like coming to grips with that, to say like, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore, and I'm going to turn it over. Can you just talk about that, or just kind of share some words of wisdom for those who have already gotten a divorce and they do want to kind of get back out there? And
Right.
as women, we like, okay, I got my list. You need to be this, whether it's the second, third, fourth, fifth, never done it before. We have a list.
They say that's Sierra's prayer.
Right. We have a list of what we want, what we don't like, how we don't like it. And God, I need you to fulfill all of that with that one person, right?
Oh.
So with you literally just turning it over, like what was that process and what type of wisdom can you give to women or men in that position to kind of just let go and let go?
Yeah. So when you get tired enough of going through those cycles,
Yeah.
you have no other choice, right? It's either I'm gonna stay in this cycle and keep getting the same thing, or I'm just gonna let it go. So I just
Yeah.
felt like I had no other choice. I knew what I was ready to give out as a woman, right? And as a wife, I knew I wanted to be a wife again. And I knew what I was willing to give out. And I had a list. I have it in my journal today. I told Brian.
It's just okay to have a list. It's all right.
Right. I had a list of, because I had, again, I dated, right, in that separation period. I had a list of what I absolutely want, what I absolutely would not deal with,
Yeah.
what I was open to, what I wanted, and what I did not want, right? And in those little gray areas. And I say that because nobody's perfect. I think we all have this, like, a lot of people have this, where's this perfect man? Where's this perfect woman?
Yeah.
The perfect one for you, God will send,
Yes.
right? I often hear, we did like a series of marriage counseling, and we are actually ending, like, even though we continued it after we got married, because there were like so many sessions. We learned so much, even though this is our second time around, right? We learned so much in this one, in this short amount of time. There's no perfect husband, there's no perfect wife.
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna go through with the people you love the most, your kids. They're gonna try you, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, just like God loved us, like that's the perfect relationship, right? We are children of God, just like He loves us no matter what we do. He loves us, right? So
Yes.
and I often, like, even with this marriage, think about like when the Bible talks about, for God so loved the world, He gave. You
Yeah.
can't get married just for love, right? Because even though God loved the world, He did something, right? So we can't just love without the action,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
You got to do some stuff with that. So it's just so much that we have been learning this second time around, and it hasn't even been. We just got married in March, so last year, I ended up, after being separated for 3 years, saying, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and file for this divorce, because it was just time.
Yeah.
And even though, people will be in your ear, oh, why are you separated for so long? When you're ready and when it's your time, you will know. Okay. So I knew, I filed, and that process went smooth. Had I did it year one of the separation, year two of the separation, it just wouldn't have been what it was last year.
Right.
Last year, it was smooth. I picked my ex up. We went and signed the papers together. We sold the house. Everything just eventually went smooth. I'm not going to say the whole process in the beginning, but the way that it ended was smooth.
Yeah.
And so we ended the marriage in August of 2022. Now, let me tell y'all. So I met Brian in July, right? So we were a month. I actually had my divorce date. It's crazy. 18th of August is July, when me and Brian started. 18th of August was my court date. And I remember him playing around saying, when those papers dry, when the pen dry, whatever he used to say. And so 18th of December, we got engaged, right? Married by March of 2023. And I didn't realize that Illinois law, you have to legally be out of a marriage for 6 months before you can even get married again. So we were literally 2 weeks past the 6 month day. So the timing of everything, right? And I know, people are like, oh my God, they got married so fast, but He was 55, I was 46. I'm like, we both been there. What are we waiting for?
Right.
We know we wanted to honor God. We wanted to do the right thing. We both wanted to get married again. So it was a conversation that both of us had. And then January, he lost one of his friends that he's been friends with for over 30 years. In
Yeah.
February, I lost my baby, right?
Yeah.
And so it was like with all of that, we felt like, okay, we've been around each other now. Like we have been through we took some L's, right?
Right,
We
right,
saw
right,
each-
right,
and we
right.
saw each other in like these vulnerable states. Like he saw me on the floor. Like I didn't care who saw
Yeah,
me at the
yeah.
point, right? And so, he saw me with the hair off and all this stuff. So it's like, you know what? And we just knew that this is what we wanted to do. And we just went for it. We decided we started telling people and we just did it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, it's early, but I'm like, in both of our experiences, you can be with somebody for 20 years, 10 years, and you're still learning them because we are growing. We're supposed to keep growing.
Right,
Right.
right.
So it's like, okay, we're going to forever be learning each other. Let's just start together now and build this life. And so that's where we are. So I was open, he was open, and we just went forth in that thing.
Join us next time for part 2. Thanks for joining us today. See you next time.